so I'm Ellie, if you don't know me. I'm a journalist at Arc magazine, and today we will be talking about Flesslers Lenggries, which is a project feature in our latest issue, which you can grab a copy of at the back if you want to take a second look. And I'm delighted to be joined with Barbara Voecks, senior designer and partner of JOI-Design, a Hamburg-based interior design, who are the mind behind this remarkable project. And Flesslers is this hotel that is set in the Bavarian mountains and was originally built for the 1972 Winter Olympics.
Yeah.
It's now been transformed into this wonderful place that blends heritage, 70s glamour, and mixes alpine charm with James Bond. Lots and lots of exciting things. So lighting is also very key to this transformation, from bespoke pieces, selective vintage fittings, and all brought together in collaboration with Wiser Lighting, who sadly couldn't join us today, but we're going to talk about him anyway.
Definitely.
So let's dive in. I think a great way to start off talking about this project is how you got involved.
Yeah, actually it was quite unusual. Normally the project starts, you got an architect started, and then there's some time that an interior designer gets involved. In this case, Peter, our founder of the office, has been asked by the guy who wanted to operate, by the operator, the hotel, to check it out. Peter happened to be in this area, and they were talking and on the phone, and then he was like, oh, if you happen to be there, drop by, have a look at the hotel, if it's worth investing, and if it could be something to then run it and operate it. And Peter did, and you see the result.
Mm-hmm. So as I said, there's a really strong identity. It's got 70s glamour, nods to James Bond. There's the Alpine character, and then Lenggries, which is German for the water rafting, right?
The Flesslers. Lenggries is the city, the town. all good. It's not, even for us, it's not a typical word that we use every day. And I'm from the northern part of Germany, so even we had to translate, or somebody had to explain it to us. Flesslers, Flöße, which is the rafting. That's the old word for the rafting man, Flesslers.
So there's lots of elements to this narrative, but which one was the one you first started pulling on? Which one did you go for?
Yeah, so actually it's the 70s Olympic theme that we found super intriguing and interesting. And it's such a funny, surprising moment, because actually when you have seen the building before, it's a very pragmatic building, very square and fair. I mean, they've done some renovation, putting up a new roof, so it gets a little bit more of expression. But before that, it was a very pragmatic 70s building with not much of a charm to it. But then being situated in this alpine charm and coming from the 70s, that was our first initial inspirational idea, because we had this James Bond 70s Roger Moore drinking martini vision in our mind, because we said, okay, let's pick up on the 70s theme.
So it was the era that you really
very much
focused on.
Very much.
So the atmosphere, that glamorous atmosphere, begins as soon as you walk through the building. When guests walk through those doors, what was the feeling you was hoping to create, and how does the lighting emphasize that?
So it's the moment of surprise. I mean, even now, even after this beautiful renovation, it's still a quite pragmatic piece of architecture, and you have this alpine surrounding. So either you would expect a beige chalet, elegant hotel, or maybe something neutral, pragmatic as the architecture is. So the surprising element when you enter the space and you're just drawn into this whole different kind of atmosphere, this is something that was crucial to us.
And let's go a little bit more into that storytelling, because the narrative is so essential to this project. How did the story of the Isar River that runs past the
straight
hotel.
by.
And the timber rafting shape that atmosphere and your material choices. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the owner of the building actually is a local person coming from there. So not only giving this glamour 70s charm, but really digging into the heritage and the roots of this location became very important. So picking up this rafting topic was something that we were happy to put in as an additional layer to it. And you know, it started in a very, or translated in a very literal way when you enter, or not enter the building, but arrive at the building. You have a beer garden in front of there, and there's a wall built of the old timber of the old rafts. So you really have the authentic material that greets you when you come closer to the building. And then when you enter, we did a little bit more of an interpretation, translation. I mean, overall, you have this warm character in the building, but we have lighting elements that have this fluent guided line that's, you know, an abstract idea of picking up the river topic, things like that.
So the balance between heritage and glamour, that is something that you just mentioned, is really interesting. At what point did the lighting become part of that storytelling?
So since the 70s were our topic, it has been there from the very beginning, because the design of this area, the lighting design, the shape, it used to be treated more in a I'm amongst a lot of lighting designers. I really have to be careful about what I'm saying. But from an ignorant interior designer point of view, it was much more about the shape in the 70s. I mean, usually it was like switch on, switch off, and maybe you dimmed it. It was not so much technique behind it, but it was all about the shapes and the geometry and all that. So this has always been one major part of the design. I think a 70s design without this typical luminaries would never work. You would never recognize it that way.
Could you perhaps give us an example of that, where there's a moment the lighting...
No, it's showing. Maybe it will switch. No, yes. So actually this is one example. It's situated right by the reception. So you enter the space, and on the right side you have this wall installation that has this walnut character. So I think this really strong walnutty, that's something that comes from the interior, but the geometric shapes and then those bulbs that have this coat on it, the silver coating. So those are elements that are very strongly connected with the 70s topic. And then, you know, the other geometric elements and shapes, as you see there later on, they are very one-to-one translations from that era.
So more broadly, where does lighting design start in your process? Is it something that you think about from the very beginning? Yeah.
Yes, definitely. You know, I'm the biggest fan of all lighting designers, and I so much appreciate you guys' work, because I've experienced in my younger ages of interior design really horrible examples. I used to design super yachts, and there it was all about materials, and you did little mock-ups, and it was all about expensive surfaces, and it was all about value. So we did all that and handed it over to the yard, and the yard, you know, did this mock-up, so we were sure it's going to be done the correct way. But this is maybe like, let's say 20-ish years ago, at the beginning of the LEDs. And the yard bought those Chinese LEDs that were just coming on, and everything was ruined. The whole ship was ruined because all the surfaces were, like the light was green, so all the surfaces looked like plastic. And that taught me in my young age how important proper illumination is, because no matter how many great ideas we come up with, how many mock-ups we do, how valuable, beautiful material surfaces we choose, if you do not have the proper lighting, it's all for nothing.
We actually had a conversation earlier today on the value of lighting, which I think you would have enjoyed. and how sometimes it can be the first thing that gets scrapped and
Yes.
clients don't understand. Was that something you had to do in this project to really sell it to the client and make them understand, like, no, we need wiser lighting, we need an architectural lighting designer?
So fortunately, this was one project where Visor has been in from the very beginning. But normally we really have to fight for proper support from interior lighting designers or lighting designers. So in this project, fortunately, maybe it's also because of Marriott standards that they have to, you have to have a lighting designer. Sometimes those standards are good for something. So no, he has been in the game from the very beginning.
He must have been like, yes,
Yes.
that's one less thing to do, don't have to fight
Definitely.
over it. So what did that collaboration unlock that wouldn't have happened otherwise?
So I think it's not only speaking for this project, it's really general how the cooperation of interior designers and lighting designers work and how necessary it is, because we come up with the decorative lighting sometimes. Like we say, we want this bluish pendular lamps, that's something that fits in there. But if I hand it over to an electrician, and that's an easy one, I mean, that might be one off the shelf, so there are certain elements that just need to be built in. But then the connection, the technical interaction in the electrical system, the implementation, all that is something that I don't have a clue of. I mean, I've done this for quite a bit, so I know a little bit what's feasible, what's not feasible. But really, we need this translation between the designer and the electrician on site to have all the functions that are needed, and they become very valuable later on for the usage and the owner. So then it's super easy to have the morning mood, the evening mood, and all the moods in between. And you don't have the staff fooling around with the system, and suddenly you have, I don't know, like the worst illumination in the evening when you want to sit by the bar.
Can you remember any technical constraints that occurred with the lighting that then became creative opportunities?
Yeah, again, this one. We have very low ceilings. So we had hardly any space to really mount into the ceiling. So we had to come up with elements that could be mounted on top and then still kind of served both ways, the design and the technical limit to it. So, and that's also a reason why above the bar we have the reflection ceiling. So, you get the illusion of a higher ceiling there. There's a material change. But actually, this area was a very, very challenging one because we have very low ceilings.
Yeah, I remember Martin from Martin Visor mentioned about the low ceilings, and there was a coincidental moment that gave that 70s sort of impression, because he couldn't put in the recessed down light, so he had to do it in a creative way, and he had to put in these luminaires that had these like black and gold reflectors in, and he said it was like he started lighting design in the 70s, and that was an approach that they would use before, and it was kind of like an incidental 70s moment, and he was like, oh, it was back in my day. It was perfect.
Yeah.
So for yourself, when it comes to lighting, there's lots of pieces. There's bespoke, there's vintage, antiques. So how do you decide when a project calls for a bespoke piece rather than specifying something that's already existing?
Yeah, that's a tricky question, because of course, like, what was first, chicken or egg? It's like you have an inspiration and you see a picture and you have an idea of where the journey is about to go, and then sometimes this inspiration is connected with a certain luminaire. So then that's it, and you hope the budget allows for it. But then it's a very off-shelf element. But then we are designers, so we get an inspiration and we see something and we're like, well, this is beautiful, but can we have it a little bit smaller, or can we have it a little bit different, or the function, it needs to be dimmable, or something like that. So actually it's quite tricky to find products off the shelf that always serve all the necessities or all the purposes that are needed, the designer's wishes and desires, the client's budget, and the technical definitions or details that are needed to get the connection and to connect it to the overall system. So then bespoke becomes easier.
Okay.
If you have the quantity then. That's again, it's a budget topic. So
yeah. So I'd love to walk through the space a little bit. As you can see, there's pictures up there. Hopefully they'll come up in time. What I was saying. So we were talking about the reception earlier, which has this beautiful bespoke piece with the circular sort of pattern. Can you describe the piece for the audience a bit more? And what was the brief and what was the atmosphere you was trying to create with that?
So we collected, of course, all kind of moods from the 70s. And as I said, this walnut color with this strong structure, that's something that's so strongly connected. And then combined now, it's showing this yellowish color or the yellow sofa in front or this mustard yellow color. I think that's, if somebody sees this, it's instantly 70s. And then combining it with this geometrical shape, with this repetition, that just screams 70s.
It so does. And then moving on into the Nepomuk Bar and Grill, the lighting is used very specifically to draw people through the space. How did you use light to create shape and movement in there? So when you enter there, you see the bar, and we have those lines, those stripes of light, as I said, a little bit as an interpretation of the water and the flow, and it draws you to the back. It's above the bar, so of course it highlights the bar. It's a different kind of design than you have on the right side where we have the wall. So I don't, you guys haven't been there, but you enter on the right side, you have the mustard and the walnut and the wall. On the left side, you have the bar with a light luminary. So it's much more modern, much more nowadays. And then on the very back, there's the next layer. I think it's going to come up. It's with the pendulas. So their light has been used again in a different way, where it's much more points that are targeting towards the tables and creating a very warm, intimate atmosphere in the back. So it's all those different layers that serve a purpose and that generate interest because it's something new. There's something different happening in those different parts of the room. Yeah, the lighting is doing so much there. It's telling all the different stories and creating all this drama and energy. But at the same time, you want a restaurant to be intimate and relaxed. So how did you find that balance between the two?
Yeah, and that's where we need the lighting designer. Because actually to be able to create this general illumination that can be dimmed or proportioned in the best way so that you have the different atmospheres throughout the day, a different one during breakfast time and a different one during evening or lunchtime. And this is something that's such a delicate art, I think. So what we come up with are those decorative items. So I can say the bar needs to have something flowing, and then at the end I want to have those pendulas, so I want them more intimate. But I know if I would only have those lights above the table and only this line, it would be too dark or too light, one of that. So it needs somebody who knows to do this art of balancing the general illumination together with the decorative one.
Mm-hmm. One thing about our talks, we will hammer home, you need a lighting designer. So let's talk about the rooftop, which is probably like the star of the show. Could you describe that for our audience?
Yeah, so you arrive with the elevator up stairs on the, I think, 7th or 8th floor. And those pictures with the red ceiling and with the circular luminaires, two or three, two, I think, row of two, guiding you towards the bar, that's the entry atmosphere. So I think it's a quite James Bondy moment when you arrive there. And then you get drawn into the overall space, where you have the floor-to-ceiling windows with a beautiful view on the mountains. So, but then still the bar with a reflecting ceiling, with a golden touch, with a red ceiling in the other areas. So you create strong contrasting moments there. Mm-hmm. Two worlds.
Yeah, because there's a strong contrast as well because of you've got the glamorous interior, but then you've got the alpine backdrop. And you probably had to be really sensitive to the outside area now. How did you find that balance between the two?
We didn't. We went full in. No, it was not about balance. It wasn't, because if you talk about balance, then you're talking chalet. You want to have a back-holding interior. You want to embrace the inside and the outside. You want to bring the inside in, the outside out. You know, that's feasible. That's a way to handle it. Mm-hmm. We did it differently this time. And we really wanted to have those strong contrasts. We really wanted to have this this fun, exciting space where you can have your party, where you can have your martini, and then glance and look outside and enjoy nature. And both worlds can exist perfectly together. And it's so much fun. I mean, it's a different approach. You cannot say one approach is better than the other. It's just a totally different one. And it's not balanced. It's really, you have a strong interior and then you have strong mountains out there. But it's two worlds and it's okay.
Did you have to be not sensitive though to the environmental side of, you know, with the lighting? I remember...
Well, yeah, yes. I mean, it's all about trying to create... not to create light pollution, right? So this is something that we are always very sensitive about, and I think Martin Weiser has it on his list quite strongly, and I think it's great because it creates those more delicate, intimate illuminations, and the lighting is then concentrated on this area where you really want to have it, instead of, you know, going full circle.
So how do you design for lighting that, because there's so much theatrical lighting, but of course you still need it to be functional and usable. How do you design lighting to fit both? So you have to be aware of the layers, I think, of light. There are so many different layers. You have the candle on your table, you have the situation, and then you have maybe this decorative lighting, and then there needs to be at least one additional layer. Sometimes there are even more, and then you have recessed ceilings where you have, again, a light curve that is more decorative. So it's all about thinking in layers, and it's about functional layers, but also design layers, just being aware that you don't stop at one level, but you really try to think from the candle to the spot, all the different situations. Was this also key in the guest rooms? I just realised I skipped a little bit forward there. So the guest rooms, that must be essential there with the layered lighting, and you've got to meet that 70s sophistication but still feel calm and contemporary.
Yeah, so there we were working in the technical way when you enter with the spots, with proper illumination. Again, there I think lighting temperature and the proper output, the angle, is super important to get the first. I mean, it has to be functional, but sometimes electrical planner come up to you and are super proud when they can illuminate like a whole hallway with only 2 fixtures. And so this is nothing that we all want to have. So having the proper downlight and a good lighting quality, that's the first step. And there also Martin has been involved. That was great. And then you come to the decorative luminaires, and it was important even to the owner to have those glass luminaires. We were happy with that. Quite often we are asked to replace them with plexiglass or something that's not so delicate. But here it was really key and important to have the real thing, to really have the quality of the glass. Glass lights. It's a yellowish glass, as a pendula by the bed.
And when guests move through the hotel from the arrival to the rooftop and make their way through the bedroom, what journey were you hoping lighting would guide them?
So as I said, the lighting supported very strongly the design idea. So the first idea was you enter and you get the first wow effect. So this is why we designed this wall, this illuminated wall with the decorative elements. Then the second one, how do you implement and guide people to the back of the restaurant? How do you generate this? So we have talked about those different lighting elements that we used for that. Then you enter the elevator and you come up to the corridor, and the corridor and the rooms, they are much calmer. Everything tones down. It's not so much drama. Yes, we do have the glass pendulas by the bed, but it's a light yellow tone. So it's there, but it's much more relaxed. And then you arrive at the top floor and it's double the volume. Yeah.
And as you can see, like, there is so much detail to every little part in this hotel. Like, I really insist that you go and pick up the issue as well, because 30 minutes is not enough to cover all the amazing things in this project. And speaking of, we are coming towards the end of our talk, so I've just got a couple more questions. Looking back, what did this project teach you, either creatively or technically?
That it's great to have a good team from the very beginning, because as all the project, also this project had value engineering moments, and if you have the people there from the very beginning picking up the intention, the ideas, understanding where the project comes from, it's so much easier to value engineer at the right positions, so that the soul and the overall intention remains.
What I love about this project is, why have one narrative when you can have 4 simultaneous ones? And the lighting just helps bring that all together. It's really interesting. Does anyone have any questions for Barbara? No?
I'm good.
Do you want to go, Alyssa?
So how does it work, the process between you and the lighting designer? Do you first give them some examples of the types of light that you have in mind, and then they'll come back and propose something even better or different ideas? Or are there ever moments where you say, this is the kind of light we want and we gotta have it?
Well, when it comes to technical elements, I always tend to listen to the lighting designer. But when it comes to design, yes, of course, we come up with the story and then we come up with ideas. And in a good collaboration, you ping pong back and forth. And it's not like everything that I imagined needs to be done that way. In a good collaboration, you rise with the communication to whole new different or maybe elaborate ideas. So I always like to do our project as a team. And I think the more experts who are willing to work together are involved, the better. So if the openness is from both sides there, then I think the best solutions are being developed.
Power of collaboration, fully enough. Definitely. Another talk we had this week. It's all tying together. Does anyone else have any questions? No? Okay, then I guess we'll call it there. It's been really great.
Thank you
everyone.